Sam, were we ready to rock and roll?
Are we ready?
Yes.
Oh, heck, this is screwing up again. Anybody know how to turn the audio off on these?
When you joining without audio?
Trying to. That's what I told it I was doing.
I call the August 5th, 2024 Charlottesville City Council meeting to order. Ms. Thomas, will you please call the roll?
Councilor Oshrin?
Here.
Councilor Payne?
Here.
Vice Mayor Pinkston?
Here.
Councilor Snook?
Here.
Mayor Wade?
Here. Thank you very much. We have a quorum. Is there a motion to approve or amend the agenda?
I move for approval of the agenda.
Okay. Can I get a second, please?
Second.
Okay. Can you please cast your vote? All right. Thank you. The motion passes. The meeting will be divided into 3 sections. The first is a work session to hear and discuss presentations that do not require a council vote. Second is a closed session, and then we will come back for a regular business meeting at 6:30. Today we will hear about the ADA transition plan update. And Paul Rudisil, did I get it right?
You did, sir. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Hopefully we have a little PowerPoint that should have been emailed.
Okay.
But I'm sorry our contractor wasn't able to be here today. They were at a retreat. And
Oh,
so,
yeah, no, that's fine.
So I'm here to bring you the update news, which is, we're doing pretty good.
Yeah.
So, as you know, we're doing an ADA self-evaluation transition plan to update our one we did many years ago. So the purpose of it, under Title II of the Americans with Disabilities Act, is to go through and look at barriers. So barriers in all of our programs and services, our policies and procedures, our right-of-ways, and our buildings, and even the buildings that we rent, or we're renting out to others. So we go through it, we look at it, and our contractor does all this for us. So the main purpose is we're trying to find barriers so people with disabilities have equal access with everybody else. And so it's one of the most important things. It's a federal requirement. If you have 50 more employees, you have to do it, or it's a civil rights violation. So currently where we're at, so through the program, we've evaluated all the right-of-way, public right-of-way. I believe it's over 120 miles. And so going through the 120 miles without the actual numbers up right now, I think we're at 40,000, over 40,000 discrepancies in our barriers. So it's preventing people from having equal access with all these barriers. So we could have no curb ramps, we could have no little domes when you have a curb ramp. And so they're all barriers that need to be fixed. And so our transition plan is capturing that. So one of the good things about our transition plan compared to other cities, even cities that are bigger in size, is we've captured everything. Most cities will just go follow the federal requirement that you have to be close to public buildings or your transit stations, and they just look for barriers then, and then they'll do math and they'll say, this is how many barriers you have. What we've done with PIM is we went through all of our infrastructure, and we've looked and found these barriers. So we can get them fixed, and I can come ask you for a whole bunch of money to get them fixed.
So 40,000, I'm sure that there's some way to prioritize those?
Yes, so our contractor is going to prioritize for them. So it's normally what you prioritize. So if you have barriers by City Hall, so you want to get those barriers fixed because you want your public to have access to their city services. If you have barriers by your transit station, you want to get those barriers fixed. And so they're prioritized. And we've looked at equity. So it's one thing a lot of transition plans are now going to. So people that are lower income, possibly, or people that are disabled, they can get transit and they can get access quicker than people who don't use it as much. And so equity is a big part of our ADA transition plan.
It looks like your PowerPoint, I don't know if you need to go through that, or you just want us to ask questions?
We can keep, you can go ask whatever you want to do, Ms. Mayor.
So I do have a question so what is the position that, you know, if we get a complaint that may not be part of that 40,000 things that you have captured and it's been identified by the public, what is our obligation? Maybe this is for Sam or someone else or Ashley, to identify the, you know, once we find out, what are our obligations to do something about it?
If we get a complaint, we verify the complaint. So if it's a valid complaint and it's about access or even a program, then we fix it and we add it to our transition plan. And so depending on what it is, so if we get a complaint, I'll use an example that city council doesn't provide sign language translators. That's an immediate thing that we need to prioritize and have sign language translators here for city council. So you would just move it up the prioritization level. So if it's a complaint about something that is out of the way and nobody uses, it's like we have, I'm trying to think of something that a low priority,
Yeah.
and you can move it back.
So we have a old city, lots of sidewalk. What if a sidewalk was done, I don't know, 20, 30 years ago before the guidelines were in place, and it just doesn't meet the guidelines? And someone brings it to our attention, are we obligated to do that right then and there, or put it on the list based on priorities?
It's based on priorities, but it has to be done. There's a lot of people who like to say, and it's an older system and it gets cities in trouble, that if you have something, it can be grandfathered in. But there is no grandfather clause under Title II of the Americans with Disabilities Act. So if it's old, but it's still being used as public right-of-way or a public building, it has to be fixed so it can be compliant and people with disabilities have equal access. Because if you say, well, it's grandfathered, we don't have to fix it, you're limited access. So you can even look at something like Monticello. You're not allowed up on the second floor. Even Monticello is a historic building. It still has to have access. And so no matter what the age, you have to provide equal access to people with disabilities. So if an able-bodied person can use it, this person with disability should be able to use it.
Okay. Thank you. Other questions or comments?
Did you have a whole PowerPoint for
I
us?
had a PowerPoint, but I can't find a.
Oh, it's probably on the other,
Say
I'd
again?
be interested in seeing what you have.
on the other lectern.
Thank you. Just move. But I covered this. What is a ADA? It's a civil rights law, and it's a civil rights law that we have to follow. And it's all civil rights is something that needs to be followed. We go over to 5 different titles. Title 1 is employment. So we're doing a review of our policies and procedures under employment. So make sure there's nothing in our employment policies that discriminate with people with disabilities and give them an opportunity to be hired by the city of Charlottesville. Title 2 is public service. Everything involved with government is Title 2. Title 3 is pretty much your private organizations, your companies. Title 4 is telecommunications. FCC governs that. And Title 5 is your miscellaneous code section provisions. And this just goes over what Title II is. It was clarified in Section 504 of the Rehabilitation Act in 1973. George Bush passed the first Americans with Disabilities Act, and after a weird Supreme Court ruling, President Obama passed a more comprehensive, more broader ADA, which made disability not less defined, but it made it broad. So under the old section was, you have to have this disability or this type of disability. When President Obama passed the law, he made it broad. So anything like bending, standing, kneeling, hearing, vision, breathing, anything that affects somebody's personal life fell into under the ADA. And in Title II, it just goes over the administrative process. It requires the requirement of a self-evaluation transition plan, making modifications of regional policies and procedures and practices to avoid architectural barriers as needed, and this is all enforced by the Department of Justice. What is a self-evaluation? What we just went over. It evaluates and identifies, and we can correct barriers so people have equal access. The transition plan, 50 more employees, we're required to have one, and it's a living document. Even though we will get a transition plan done, it's good to continue and evaluate and always look for barriers. Laws change, buildings change, infrastructure breaks, and it's good to continue to keep updating our transition plan. Our schedule right now, we did our pro-rag assessment. We did 165 miles,
So what does
Alright.
PRO-WAG stand for?
public right-of-way. So it's federal law governing like sidewalks, how wide they have to be, how long, the runs, the sloping, inside of buildings, the different areas have to be, how big tables how high tables can be. Public engagement, we completed that in the winter of 2024. We did over 219 transit assessment buildings. Our park assessment's complete. We've completed 72 buildings right now in our facility assessment. Programs and services and the website. The website begins in 2024, well, August of this month, excuse me, of this year. And we're doing our programs continuously. And then we'll have a draft and we'll follow with completion. Our public engagement, we had a meeting in January, and then we did a meeting with the Human Rights Commission, and we did a team up there so we could get people engaged with the disability community and just other people as well. And these are some of the quotes. Because of John, my limitations are very much, although I wish I could.
So can I ask you something about the
Yes.
website? You said it's going to be, what, upgraded, updated, changed in some way this month?
It was, I think we updated our website, sir, back in June. So what our,
You had just said August, so I...
no, we're doing an assessment of our website.
Oh, okay.
So we're going to evaluate the website and see if it has anything that can prevent people with disabilities from accessing it.
Was the June update to the website something that had any particular focus on the ADA compliance?
It was just, I believe the city was updating their website.
Okay, so, so this update or this analysis that's going to be done within the next month or so is going to tell us what needs to happen to the website to make it ADA compliant?
Yes, sir. And then it's updated, it could be no problems with the website, it could be perfect. But we may also find things that our contractor just didn't notice.
Yeah, okay.
That's our right-of-way assessment. We found 4,800 barriers in the right-of-way. That can be sidewalk less than 4 feet, pedestrian signals, there was over 225 barriers there, crosswalks, 436. We had 551 missing curb ramps. We evaluated 2,760 curb ramps in general, and we had 53 complaints.
So how many violations in this category?
Total 4,822.
Do you have a general idea of what, in terms of money or in terms of time, would be necessary to address those?
We had an early estimate from our contractor. I didn't want to put it here because it's an early estimate, but they're estimating $150 million for everything.
Wow. Well, and over, what, some number of years, I assume?
Typically, you try to, it depends on your city size. We'll use Fauquier as an example. When they had a settlement agreement with the Department of Justice, they were given 5 years on the town of Warrenton, excuse me. So it depends what the city council wants to do. I know the city of Los Angeles, they had over $1.5 billion of right-of-way violations, and they try to spread it out over 100 years. The federal government got involved and said, no, you have to do it in 20.
Well,
So it's just, you don't want the federal government involved.
Sure.
Unless they're helping pay for it.
Yes, unless they're helping to pay for it. But you don't want them to say, hey, so it's up to city council and it's up to us to decide, hey, how long can we get this done?
Did you say 115 million?
150 million, sir.
150.
Jeez.
In the right-of-way assessment findings you have listed here, you have 53 compliant. Is that 53 like intersections and crosswalks that were correct and good?
Yes.
Okay.
We had 1,142 total discrepancies in our park system. 184 out of 219 of our transit stations had some kind of deficiency. Our parks are done, that is one good thing, but we do have a lot of barriers. And that's my PowerPoint. Do you have any questions, concerns?
What's going to be I mean, obviously, the next step, I'm assuming, is going to be some sense of how are we going to move forward, how are we going to address which areas first? Do you have any sense right now of how long it's going to take you to do the kind of assessment necessary that would enable us to look at you and say, okay, Mr. Ursul, here's your schedule?
At the end of this month, we should have a right-of-way report. So it will show every single barrier and it'll be prioritized. So we'll know at the top what we need to do all the way to the bottom. So I can show that at the end of the month, and then we'll know how much money there.
Okay.
We should have a total report, I'm hoping by the end of October. So that will show every barrier the city has, a prioritization, what we should work on first, all the way to the end. And it'd be broke down on how much money that we estimate that the city can provide to get these barriers corrected.
I'm curious about one thing. There was a transition plan done in 2013, if I remember correctly. And one might hope, in the best of all worlds, that there would not have been new creations, new problems created since 2013. My suspicion is that that is not the case, and that we've had continuing, creating new problems without even realizing it sort of situations. Is that fair to say?
That's fair to say.
Is there a way that we can arrest that process so that at least we don't dig the hole deeper?
Yeah, the new transition plan will cover that, and we'll have access and it'll be interactive. So as we do steps in the city to correct barriers, we can remove them and it can show. And because we're gonna make a living transition document where we can continue to add to it, we can add new problems as they come. Because the old one in 2013 never addressed and never showed where the problems were. It would just give numbers if you look at it. It said we had 200 and, I'm just going off. It would say 212 curb ramps that need to be done, but it never showed where the 212 curb ramps were. This plan will show, hey, we have this many curb ramps that need to be fixed, and it shows where they're at and how much it's gonna cost, an estimate, and then we can get it corrected.
To use that as an example, do we have a way to make sure that if a new curb ramp is being, or if a new curb is being built, whether it's by private enterprise of some sort or by the city, that right then and there, it's ADA compliant?
Our Public Works Department should be evaluating it before we accept a new curb ramp. If it's by private and public, it should be evaluated and say, hey, this is the standard, we will accept this.
Is there something that we need to be doing, we as council need to be doing in terms of amending an ordinance or something to say, just as an example, no site plan can be approved unless every curb cut is ADA compliant? Or is there anything like that that we need to be doing?
No, I don't think there's anything that needs to be done like that. Because I think, to that point, all of our plans are evaluated. They're looked at by Public Works, they're looked at by me, and we are making the determination now that, hey, this curb ramp is the standard, and it's going through.
So when drawings are being reviewed, your office takes a look at those?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yeah. I think that's the main thing, is that at this point, when development proposals come through, just like, the fire department, the zoning, everyone kind of check off and review it, your office needs to review it as well to make sure that, okay, is the sidewalk big enough or wide enough or whatever, type of thing we need to know.
Yes, sir.
I know that the sort of feedback process from folks in the community, the feedback we get on our compliance or lack thereof with ADA is I'll use the phrase energetic. We get a lot of feedback. How do you track that? Do you keep a log of when a person complains and what the response is?
Yes, sir, I keep a log. So I make an Excel document, and so every complaint is
Okay.
documented and logged.
Okay. Good, thank you. I'm glad to hear that. And then the other piece I had was, we have this transition plan that was being finished. You mentioned that it would be a living document. Is it some sort of software that we're buying that tracks all this, or just a glorified spreadsheet?
With our contractor, we get 3 years of continuing to update. Then after 3 years, then we can continue to pay for the service to update,
Uh-huh.
or we can just have it with glorified spreadsheet, as you said. But I would hope that we can continue to pay and keep track of all of our documentation.
Okay, because that's a very helpful system, it sounds like?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Yeah, I'm assuming that, just trying to remember the CIP process. Do we have a bucket that's specifically set aside for ADA?
Yes, we do.
Okay.
And Councilmember Pinkston, in this CIP, budget has already worked diligently to start to set up a different code so that when we look at our new budget and when we're able to put in funding specifically for transition plan repairs, that will be in a separate bucket. So individuals, you all and individuals from the community will be able to see that there is the existing ADA curbs and sidewalk fund in the CIP, but then there is going to be a specific ADA transition plan section. So when we're able to dedicate funding to repairs that transition plan has identified, it will be in bucket A, and then Paul will still have access to the funds in the current ADA curbs and sidewalk funds to make those repairs, because anything could happen. A curb could break, for example, preaching to the choir, and that needs to be repaired, but that wouldn't have been in the transition plan dollar amount that is proposed.
Got it. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
So we will end up getting, once this transition plan is done, we'll get like a recommendation from y'all every year on how much to invest in the ADA transition for the next year? Is that how that will work, or is it?
I think that's probably how it would work. We would come and say, hey, can we get this amount of money so we can correct this amount of things? And
Do y'all anticipate some, I know that Mr. Chambers has done a lot of work with the new sidewalk priorities list. Is there some kind of integration between your list and his list? Like
yes, he shared that list with our contractor and they're
Okay.
integrating that into our transition plan as well.
Good. What's the name of the contractor?
PIM Precision, I forgot what the,
They
I
do
think it's
this.
in the I think it's in the packet.
Thank you.
In the,
This is a firm that's well-known, has a lot of history doing this work.
yes. They're currently, right now they're doing Loudoun County, Virginia, and they're also doing Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. So,
Okay.
Precision Infrastructure Management.
Nice.
thank you.
Okay. Oh, one other question I had. So do we currently have monthly ADA meetings with the public?
We do quarterly at the ADA committee, so,
Okay.
and we normally team up with the Independent Resource Center.
Okay.
And so we team up with them and we do
Okay.
a committee meeting.
Okay. Great. Thank you.
You're welcome.
I've got a couple questions. So since this is Charlottesville is an old city in a lot of ways, and a lot of our infrastructure does predate the ADA, which is a federal statute. Is there any accessible money from the feds or any other kind of outside money that helps us with making sure our streets and pathways are more accessible?
There is some grant money we can reach out for. And the federal government will provide funds. And normally it's a matching fund they will do.
Okay, is there, so of that 150 million potentially that we would need if we were to do it all at once today, we would put 75 up front and the feds would match that? Or how much outside money could we kind of hope for?
The federal government for this normally is, they have a pool. And so it's just other jurisdictions. So it just
It's
depends on where.
competitive.
Yes.
Okay. Do you know how much we have, do we have any from them at the moment?
No, not for any ADA improvements.
Okay. Is there any grant application process in the works?
Not at this time.
But we're gonna try?
We're going to try for this next budget. We want to see what the total is before
Yeah.
we reach out.
And I know that you said initial report end of this month, October full report, but I'm sure some of we know the list already because you've presented us with the numbers. Are there any small, easy things we could make, any changes we could make in the meantime?
Well, we're capturing some easy changes as we go. A lot of trees and barriers that just grow into the sidewalk, which is technically a barrier which needs to be removed. We're catching them better. So a lot of them, and that's an easy one we can remove. We're improving curb ramps. The city is currently doing that. Public Works is. We've been working on our signal integration. I was talking to Brennan Duncan, our traffic engineer, and we have new signals there for crosswalks. So we are doing improvements or little improvements.
So we've got concurrent improvements
Yes.
while the study is being collected. Okay, and then what is the best way for the public to get in touch if they notice something? Is it through MySeville or?
MySeville, they can email the ADA coordinator. We have our email. It's ada.gov, charlottesville.gov. And you can email and we can get the issues taken care of.
So
They're
the email
best.
would be ada@charlottesville.gov, or you can log into the MySeville app and pinpoint exactly where the issue is.
Yes.
Great, thank you.
You're welcome.
And Councilmember, I also just would like to remind the public that there is information on ADA's website that's available online, including the required ADA grievance process. That's all laid out on the website, as well as updates as we go on for the self-evaluation and the transition plan. It has its own page. So we're trying to make sure that as much information as possible, if someone wakes up at 3 a.m. and wants to find out about it, they're able to do so.
So that ADA page in our city's website?
Yes.
Okay, great, thank you.
I don't have any questions.
Okay. Lloyd, are you?
I'm questioned out.
So before we close, I would like to add a few comments. Remy, could you pull up the presentation again and go to the findings slide? And this is for the benefit of the public, because council knows this has been an issue that I've been talking about well beyond the past year of serving as city manager. But I just want to be able to express a little more for public appreciation and for council as a reminder that ADA is a priority. It is something that I will say that we could have done better in the past. I'm committed to doing better going forward. We have made a series of changes since my time here. Myself and Deputy Marshall have been working on this as something that we could demonstrate that we can do better and then actually deliver on doing better. Paul being in her office of social equity is a sign of that, to elevate the concern around the deficiencies in this space. We are aware that there is a lot. This slide proves that no one is making it up when we say that we have a lot of work to do. We have a lot of work to do. And when you look at that slide, there's a lot of money that needs to be spent to get those things done. So I state that, acknowledging that this is going to take a while for us to fix. No community has simply fixed it by discovering that they have a problem and then spend the money to do it. We have to work on this. It's going to be a multi-year process, and it has already been a multi-year process. I've spent a great deal of time myself studying what it is that we have done in the past. How did we do it in the past? What can we do differently? We have started doing things differently, and we continue to make changes to how we do those things. As Paul has identified, we are really, really anxiously awaiting the production of this ADA transition plan as an updated document, but one that we view as more complete. Because as he pointed out, the one before didn't really have all the components to it. This is a full assessment. This is what the intention is for us to have. We have a lot of balancing our priorities. This one you won't get away from hearing from us on. This is your equity priority. If you had to identify what all falls in that space, you can put ADA first. This is what we're going to continue to bring to you as an opportunity for you to look at how we can prioritize additional funding to begin to address these various things. What you also see in looking at this list is this is not one department. This is across the entire city government. We all have things that we could be doing in this space, and we've got to figure out how to reach a level of compliance. If I go with what my predecessor has done with this whole bring back boring government thing, he also said that we should have a culture of compliance around ADA. And that's something that I have taken to heart when I heard him say that, and why we have spent the time. Paul has talked to me probably way more than he really wanted to, and way more than he ever thought he would. But that's because it's that important for us to figure out how to get this right. There's a lot more that we're going to have to continue to work on. We will break this down over time. We will bring items to you over the course of each fiscal year. I would imagine that we're going to be prioritizing some consideration of an annual allocation in this space because there's just so much on that list and there's no other way to do it. But also want to go back to what you heard him say in regards to when the federal government arrives, which we don't want them to arrive, but when they arrive, usually what happens when they leave is they leave you with a big old debt, and that's in the form of a settlement that you have to agree to get certain things done in a period of time. It's my desire to avoid that by demonstrating our best effort, and best effort for me is a commitment to doing things, changing things, and showing that things are actually improving. So that's the work that I have committed to and what we're working on, and we're continuing to chip away at that. So I just want to say that out loud for everyone to appreciate it coming out of my mouth. I said it. We own this problem. We're not hiding from it. No one is pretending that it doesn't exist. You can't walk out on the sidewalk and question, well, why is that here in the middle of a sidewalk? We have a lot of moments like that that should not be the case, and we now have to prioritize getting those things done. We have team members in place who get it, who understand it, who are ready to prioritize it. Not to say that everybody before didn't, but some of it are decisions that have to be made at a higher level that weren't being brought up to be made. And now I'm asking that everyone bring any issue regarding what does it cost and what the politics of it is to me, so that I can bring it to you.
Thank you. So just, we often get emails individually and sometimes as a group where, you know, someone has identified an issue, an improvement, whether it's for a bus stop or sidewalk or something that needs to be addressed. Or if we should get something like that, do we, you know, I usually refer them to staff, but is that something that goes on that list that we have, or some of it seems a little bit more pressing? I just want to get an idea of how that is handled.
When we receive a complaint, because normally I get attached to the same complaints you get. But if we get a complaint, we look at it, we verify there is a complaint. And once we verify it as a complaint, then it gets added to the transition plan if it hasn't been captured. And then we'll get it fixed as soon as we can get it fixed. Lots of times there's maintenance in the right of way. They're working on a sidewalk and it's a lot of barrier issues. We get them fixed immediately. We have less than a 24-hour turnaround time on a lot of our complaints. There's some complaints, their sidewalks, they're not wide enough, or a curb ramp wasn't built. We capture it, we get it, and we look to get it fixed as soon as possible, and we put it on our list. We don't push back, we try to, we're proactive, we get our request, and we get them fixed as soon as we can.
How often do you get an email and complaint like that or something and you don't know about it already?
Most of it have been captured. So if we get a complaint in the right of way about a sidewalk or curb ramp not being built, after we verify with our contractor, they're captured and they're getting built into our list.
So a lot of these things are already known about. It's kind of the more immediate or short-term things that might not be, like there's a truck in the way or something that's less fixed.
Yes,
Yeah.
that's what normally they are.
Okay, thanks.
And I'll add that we don't have a concrete crew within the city, so that when we get word of there's a broken section of sidewalk, please come and repair it. We don't have anybody that does that. That is not within our public works team. It's a conversation that we're having today. I think we've had that before. We've talked about it, considering reorganizing to maybe make that possible so that we could go and address certain things more immediate in that regard. But anything that then requires actual construction work becomes a part of a long, massive list. That's why that sheet looks that way. Very similar to the concept of what we just went through with sidewalks. There's way more work than we have the capacity to do. The goal is to develop a better process for us to follow on identifying what are the top emergencies, what are the hot priority things, what are the repeat things that keep coming up. Put them on a priority list, make them a part of work plans. Paul will have a work plan just like everybody else, and the goal will be that we'll identify what things we can do in the course of a year. You have funded that, and then we can work towards delivering on those items over the course of the year. That's what I'm anticipating seeing, similar to what we just showed for you in looking at the sidewalk list.
Thanks.
Any other questions or comments? Thank you so much, Paul. Appreciate it. I know,
Thank you.
know you're busy. You got a lot of things on your plate with the ADA. It's a busy town, so
It's a pleasure.
engaged town, so thank you so much.
Thank you. Have a good one.
Thank you, Paul.
Thank you.
Sam, do we have anything else at this time?
Nothing else for the 4 o'clock. You do have a closed session.
Yeah.
Mr. Pinkston, did you receive that? Yes, or someone?
Yeah, I have a motion for a city council closed session pursuant to section 2.2-3712 of the Virginia Code. I move that the city council close this open meeting and convene in a closed session as authorized by the Virginia Freedom of Information Act as follows. 1, under Virginia Code section 2.2-3711A1, for discussion and consideration of assignment, appointment, performance, demotion, salary, discipline, and a resignation of a specific named employee of the public body. And 2, under Virginia Code section 2.2-3711A1, for discussion, for discussion and consideration of prospective candidates to be interviewed for the Planning Commission. And 3, under Virginia Code section 2.2-3711A1, for discussion and consideration of prospective candidates to be interviewed for the Police Civilian Oversight Board.
I'll second the motion.
Second. Okay, any discussion? If not, can we vote? Okay, the motion passes. We are now in closed session. We'll be back at 6:30. And for those who are viewing online, there's a separate link for that. So thank you. Be back in a couple of hours.